two. I don't think there are any add-ons.
No, sir.
Okay, nothing else? All right, Mr. Nolan.
I apologize for twice in 2 weeks, but it is what it is. So good to see everybody. This one's kind of exciting, actually. Just as way of a little bit of background, you all know this, but probably most of the public don't know that when I was a very small child, the county created two different departments, a data board and a data processing department and a telecom department. And those departments served very different roles in the 80s and 90s when data processing was used almost exclusively for the large computer system, the one large computer system that the county had, which was the auditor's CAMA system. And slowly, as more systems came on board, the data processing department handled all of those under the auditor's office and the data board that was created by this body, which includes the auditor, the treasurer, the recorder, the clerk of courts, the board of elections, and one of the county commissioners. And that's how we've existed for the last 40 years. Over time, IT, as we've called it, and telecom have merged in what they do in large part, as the telephones that we all use have become computers. And the roles have been similar, but they've been kind of parallel paths. And so the telecom department has served under the commissioners, and the IT department has served under the data board with the auditor in charge. And I've never liked that. And I've made that fairly clear in my tenure, that I didn't think it made a lot of sense. And so, as many of you know, when I took office a long time ago, it seems now, this body brought in a consultant that did an assessment of our IT department. That's when we were going through the transition. A lot of people were leaving, and they gave us a lot of great ideas. But their number one suggestion was that you should merge your data department and your telecom department. And we've done almost all of the things that that consultant suggested to streamline and make our process better and safer, but we hadn't done that for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of personalities involved, there's a lot of egos involved, mostly mine, and so we hadn't done that. But we've reached another point. So about 18 months ago, let's say, Gary Estes and Martin came to me and said, what would it take to merge the two departments? And I said, if you can make my director happy with it, I'm always wanted it. And so Gary put a lot of time and effort into a plan that he brought to me, and I said, I don't like it. Don't like it. There was pieces of it I thought it was not what my vision was. Gary took that well, went back to the drawing board, put a lot more time into it, and him and Ben worked together, and they came up with a plan that makes a lot of sense to me, and I think is in the best interest of the county. The number one most important part of IT and telecom is safety. And whether it be 911, whether it be attacks from outside, as so many of our neighbors have been hit with recently, and knock on wood, we have not yet. No, not to the lack of effort by those attacking, I assure you.
We've been attacked, they haven't succeeded.
Exactly. And that's Ben and Gary's number one priority as well. So they've put a ton of effort into this. You know, I've spent a lot of time lately, media and otherwise, talking about how we've got to shrink the size of government and we've got to get rid of things that have been there solely for the purpose of being there. And I put the split between IT and telecom in that category. They work better together. Ben and Gary have put all of the effort into making them work together. There has been another large number of retirements in IT at this time that if we don't merge these two together, we're going to replace them. So things like administrative assistants, right? Somebody's got to put payroll in, somebody's got to do the expense reports. We have two separate people doing that because it's two different departments. By merging these two together, we don't need to replace that person. They can do those. Simple things like that. We spend time competing with each other for staff. It's the same kind of people doing the same kind of work. We're competing each other. The person that we hired to help with security and IT recently got hired by telecom. He's really good at his job. They want him. And so we get that. And so that competition goes away, which will help lower costs over time. This is not something that's going to immediately lower costs. I don't want to give that impression. But over time, I think it's going to make Warren County more secure, and it's going to help streamline processes that are not there right now that we can work towards. So that's what I'd like to see. It involves taking authority away from elected officials and giving it to the commissioners. That's an unusual thing. I will say there are not many counties in the state that are doing this. And it's, you know, it's unusual. I think we can only do it in Warren County because of the faith that the elected officials have with their commissioners. As you probably know or may not, if you go to a Auditors Association meeting or a Treasurers Association meeting, the first topic of conversation is how bad the state legislature is. And I participate in those. And then the second part of the conversation is how bad their commissioners are. And it's because of this kind of headbutting and things like that that go on in probably 86 other counties, but they don't in Warren. And so I'm perfectly comfortable putting the authority of IT under the commissioners. I think it's the right thing to do. So that's what we're asking today, is for you to approve this merger. It is a bit time sensitive because of the budget process. We've got to get moving on all of their budgets, but also every single county budget touches IT. And so we've got to adjust those budgets as we approve that if we're moving forward with this. So happy to answer any questions. I know gentlemen will be happy to answer any questions that you have as well. The other members of the data board are here as well if anybody else would like to speak.
So when you use the word "we," who is the "we"? Who collectively is in favor of this?
So we had a meeting a month ago, and Randy, the Board of Elections, and I were all in support of this, as were the commissioners, representatives have been historically. The county recorder has expressed, Ms. Oda, who couldn't be here today, has expressed hesitation. I won't say she's opposed it, but she's definitely the most hesitant. And Clerk of Court Smith has some hesitation as well. And so just, I think mostly, Brenton's here so he can speak for himself. I'll speak for Linda in the oversight. And this is a change. There's no doubt. This is a big change. And so I don't know a single county in the state that has had a data board and then moved it back to the commissioners. So it's an unprecedented change. That to me doesn't mean it's bad, but it is unusual.
Well, I would just say for myself, as a member of the data board, and you said that it was 18 months ago. I would have thought it was a lot longer than that. I don't know, maybe the days feel like weeks, and that we had a conversation with both of our teams to really try to encourage finding a path forward. And, you know, I have been, you know, fully supportive in concept for those conversations to move forward. I got to spend some time with both Gary and Ben when they were at the NACO conversation and they were sharing kind of how things were moving. And I, you know, never wanted it to seem as if it was the Board of Commissioners that were trying to exert influence and take on this role. It just seemed that, you know, much like you came to the conclusion on your own, that there was some inefficiency there. But most importantly, from my standpoint, is how rapidly technology is changing and the need to be rowing in the same direction under, you know, single leadership. And so I know it's been easy to say here in just a couple of minutes, but I know that it's a tremendous amount of work, and I really appreciate you and your team and the other elected officials who kind of understood the heart with which we were trying to approach this. It wasn't about control. It wasn't about trying to kind of overlook the legitimate concerns that people were raising about this, because we want to do this in the right way. But I really appreciate so much effort. And honestly, you know, when we had that meeting in the commissioners' conference room, however long ago it was, I was really suspect that we would get to this date. And I think it's just recognition, both that the stakes are just too high for us not to have a better way to be able to keep our system secure. But I think it's a testament to the people who are doing this work day to day and the urgency that they felt in ensuring that our records and our systems were protected. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you to your team for all of this work. And I know transitions and change are difficult, but you certainly have my commitment if the commission should agree with this assessment to move forward, to do everything that we can to ensure a smooth transition.
Any other members of the board before I speak? Got anything else to add for the good?
Good morning, board.
Good morning.
I guess I'll sort of speak on behalf of Recorder Oda, in that her and myself have been, as our auditor mentioned, the two on our board that have been hesitant a bit about this. I want to kind of clarify what our hesitation is. It's not that we are not in support of this merger, because I'll say in my short time so far, less than a year being a county-wide elected official, as well as I'm sure Recorder Oda would say in her longer tenure as recorder, we've seen that there are a lot of functions, as was mentioned, that are duplicative between these two organizations, groups, departments. And it makes perfect sense. I believe it's in the best interest of the residents of the county, of the taxpayers, that these two departments merge. We're in full support of that. I think the difference that we have, or the caution that we have, comes as far as the oversight of this new merged department. Because of the departments that we run, myself as clerk of courts and Linda Oda as recorder, and the level at which the public interacts with our departments on a technological basis. For me, with our case management system, there's a lot of filing and interaction that occurs with the public and with legal practitioners through our website, etc., and email. For Recorder Oda, obviously she deals a lot with the public as well from an IT perspective. It makes our departments a little unique. And so we want to make sure that with this new merged department between IT and telecom, that there's input and involvement from us, because we rely so heavily on both of these two soon to be and hopefully one department. But like I said, there is absolutely no reservation, no hesitation on our part that we need to merge these two organizations. We're both small government conservatives. We're in full support of that. And it's not that we're opposed to handing this over to the commissioners. We're not blanketly opposed to that. We just want to make sure that throughout this process and then going forward, that we have an opportunity to be involved and be a part of the conversation as continued developments and efficiencies occur. That's all.
For my, number one, thank you. I think that's a very reasonable position to take of, we are so based on, we have such a high volume, we have such interactions with the public, and the primary way you interact with the public is through your website and through the program. What I would say to that is, for Linda and your predecessor, we actually purchased your software. And that was kind of sold to us, if I remember correctly. And I think the practice of this board has been to listen to those elected officials responsible for that task, providing them with every resource possible, which I know, because I remember the recorder's software was expensive, Matt, if I'm not mistaken. That was super expensive. I think, wasn't case management almost given to us by another county or something, and did we get, I mean, there's something weird.
A couple different softwares.
But there's something weird with that, but I remember when it happened, and I think from our perspective, how much interaction has the board tried to give you relative to overseeing your use of the website or your software? Zero. You do it. Do it. You know, we were just involved with that, and I have a feeling that this oversight will continue in the same manner from an efficiency standpoint. We're trying to empower our partners, our other countywide elected officials, to go do their job in the most efficient manner possible. And how that actually interacts, I don't see any change from a practical standpoint from us trying to tell you what to do with it. It really comes from the tech people saying, is this possible or is it not possible? That would be the only concern from, you know, a practical standpoint of interacting. You know, does this software work on our system? Right, fellas? I mean, that's all. I mean, you've never heard us come in and say, don't do this, or right? I mean, correct. Yeah, I mean, so it's just from a tech perspective, would there be any hesitation? So hopefully that comes. We have zero interest in getting into the business of kind of directly telling another elected official how to interact with the public or what the best method is. You all are the ones that do the due diligence on what software is the best, what people in your association are doing, what best works here, and then you go to the tech people and interact with them relative to, does this code fit into our servers, and do we have to buy a whole new rack to do this, or whatever it is. Then that becomes a different standard, but from a practical ongoing basis, I don't see any change relative to how our partners, the other countywide elected officials, actually interact, if that helps you.
Yes, no, that absolutely does. And I'll say too, it may be somewhat of a generational thing. Also, again, me being new to this office, I would think a little bit more involved or interested in some of the minutiae and details regarding some of the technology that the clerk's office uses. And so that has kind of colored my perspective as I've approached this.
Just call me old.
Just
call me old.
Oh, no.
So,
I would never.
Well, it's interesting now, I mean, because I wanted to hear from what is the hesitation.
Yeah.
And fair enough, you know, I'm not saying that's misplaced. And I think from the board's perspective, at least I hate to speak on behalf of my colleagues, but I don't think we have any desire to be in the minutia of
Yeah.
that. Correct?
Because I think the intention is for the Records Commission to continue, is it not? That the duties of the Records Commission would remain, and so that responsibility, you know, presumably, as Commissioner Young said, would continue to be facilitated. I suspect that, so I guess I'm trying to understand what is the objection with respect to, or is there really one, or are you just saying there's discomfort in it because it's something new? But as I am thinking about this, is it not just the Records Commission sort of, you know, maintains its function, and then there's a dissolution of the overarching data board? Matt, maybe you have an opinion on that?
Well, and I like I mentioned, it's not a situation where we are blanketly opposed to the commissioners taking this over, and then we're absolutely not opposed to the merger at all.
But it doesn't.
But we had some discussions. There were discussions about various. And I'm sorry if you.
I'm literally just trying to understand the I'd say conflict. I hear you. It's not hesitation.
Yes.
Is because if the Records Commission is still going to exist and its functions are still going to exist, albeit sort of outside of this other structure, it seems to me then the functions that you and Recorder Oda are wanting to rightly ensure continue would indeed continue. Is there something about the Records Commission that you think complicates the job that the Records Commission is statutorily required to do.
No, well, so there were some different options that were discussed as we were looking at how the IT and telecom departments can be merged. This option of handing it over to you all as the commissioners, that was one of the options. There was a second option that we had discussed as well, because there is the data board. And we were looking at maybe expanding that board, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe it was the data board, expanding that board. There was a specific term for it, something similar or akin to like a super board, etc. It would increase the size of that board. It would add new members. I believe the county sheriff would become a member of it as well too. At least one of the common pleas judges, I believe, would also be included on it as well. And so with this option, having you all take over as the commissioners, it would eliminate that option. The board, the recording board or the recorder's board, etc., would still remain, but the data board would be eliminated, if I'm understanding correctly.
That's my understanding
Yes,
too.
yeah,
right?
and so-
But the Records Commission would remain intact.
Yes, the Records Commission would remain intact. And so that was kind of the impetus for that discussion as far as our hesitation and reservation is the elimination of one of those boards and the oversight that that board has, and then it being replaced by the commissioners. Again, like I said, it's not that we're completely opposed to the commissioners. It was just, we're just asking those questions, and we just want to make sure, we're looking for assurances that the practice that has existed up till now will continue as far as us being able to have that input relative to our respective departments.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that makes sense to me. I understand what it is. Your preference was to have another super board, sort of bureaucracy, to provide oversight on the commissioners, where the auditor and the treasurer are saying, that's not really practicable. I mean, but still you have these concerns. I mean, I guess, and if there's something I'm missing, by all means, please inform me. But I think historically, the administration here has been very open to the input of all of our elected officials and our professional staff to ensure that we deliver services in the most efficient and the best way possible. And so if the concern is that we would not do that in this instance, I don't think that that's accurate, but I can appreciate the fact that with any change, there's this, you're unsure about it. But I think history is a good indicator of what future practice is going to be, and it's certainly not my intention, and I think I could speak for the board, to discount what others have to say, especially since we value their unique points of view. And so that now I'm understanding what the concern is. I guess it wouldn't surprise you that I don't necessarily share that concern, but I appreciate what it is that you're saying.
Yes, no, and I want to make it clear, again, I hesitate to speak on behalf of Recorder Oda, but I think she would agree with me in this regard. I'll take the risk and say that, in that we're not thinking of looking at you all as you would be kind of actively looking to cut us out of the process or anything like that. Again, we're just making sure that nothing gets lost in translation in this transition, and after kind of the music stops and all the seats get filled, that we kind of make sure that all the pieces fall properly into place and everybody still has a seat at the table, etc. Not to say at all that you guys would be looking to do anything to cut us out of the process. That's not what we're saying at all. as far as I understand, and I've seen as a resident before becoming a countywide elected official, I love the fact that Warren County, all of our elected officials get along as well as we do and work together as well as we do. I have no hesitation that that will cease. That's not what this is about at all. Again, it's just making sure that we express our concerns and, you know, just making sure that things will continue.
Fair enough, you said
practically
it, you wanna hear it from us, that,
Yeah.
you know, we're not now changing our
Yes.
modus operandi, that we're gonna change some, no.
Yeah.
You guys have always, the other countywide elected officials have told us for their particular department what works best for them. They come, they make the pitch, they say this software is super expensive, this new case management, whatever it is, and we listen, we make a decision working with, and I think 100% of the time, going with the recommendation of the countywide elected official that did all the due diligence. That's what you're supposed to do. And then you basically just pitch it to us to make sure we're the ones actually signing the contracts and writing the checks, that we're okay with it. That's literally the way it's worked in the past from a real standpoint. That's the way it's going to work in the future. Matt, am I changing? Is that correct?
100% of the time. I would say there have been times where we probably should have pushed back. I think Brighton would agree with me. In the prior clerk system, we probably should have pushed back. But that hasn't been how, you know, Jim thought that was the best system and we went with it. We probably shouldn't. You know, and so almost to a fault you guys have done that.
Fair enough. So I do have some thoughts on this whole thing. And my number one, since we're on the topic of the hesitation, it's very well placed relative to how does this impact me from my job. You other countywide elected officials, the Board of Elections, how's this really affect me here? And you should be thinking like that. I'm not thinking like that. I'm thinking at 30,000 feet. 30,000 feet, we're under attack every day. People are trying from Russia, from China, they're trying to shut us down. Period, end of story. Correct, IT guys? Yes. And so when we're thinking about that, and that's why we went down this cyber security exercise that we've been doing the last couple of years, no matter how much these two departments work together, it's two departments. And all of a sudden, when you have a big crack down the middle, it's two different people doing kind of the two different things, who's talking to who? Oh, I thought they were doing that, I thought I was doing that. All of a sudden, what happens? That's a gap. And all of a sudden, somebody can come in and shut us down, which is honestly so much more important than how interactive your case management system is with the public. If this whole system gets shut down and held hostage for tens of millions of dollars and no one's getting anything done, they could, you know, are they in our 911 system? Whatever it is, that's incredibly important to me. And that's the most overarching thing. So that being said, that from 30,000 feet, of course this makes sense. It has to be this way. And from a long-term historical perspective, before my colleagues were around, you have no idea what, as a business guy, when I first walked in here 21 years ago and saw what we were doing and went to a few of those data board members when I was the appointed member, I was like, what? We're doing what here? But it was very much, this is the way the law says we're supposed to do it. This is the way we're going to do it. This is the way we've always done it. And I don't really care what you young kids say about this. This is the way we're doing it. Why in the world? It was long distance to call the county from Mason. It was a big deal to get a phone station. If we had a new employee and trying to get a phone to them was a arduous process. It just was. Getting a new computer, oh my goodness. That's literally what I faced when we came in and we hire a new person that's critically important to the public's good. We need a computer, we need a phone. We gotta wait for the data board to literally approve this stuff. Matt, am I making that up? That's
how it used to be. It was every time.
that was while you were still in elementary school. So this was the way it was, and this is the way it should be, in my humble opinion. Because again, the commissioners are the ones that write the checks and approve the contracts. Ultimately, we do this anyway in a kind of a backdoor way. So I'm glad that this is the way we're coming this is all kind of coming together with some new faces, new mentalities, with the new level of threat. And again, I can't emphasize that enough. The level of threats that we're getting literally every day in this county is unbelievable. People want to shut us down. Foreign actors 100% want to shut this county down from a technology standpoint. They want to get our systems and ruin them and hold us hostage. That is an absolute fact. So putting this together to where there potentially is no finger pointing, well, I thought you were going to do it. Well, you were supposed to do it. And now all of a sudden, it doesn't matter who was supposed to do it. We're shut down. That's what from 30,000 feet, that's my number one concern. And so, praise the Lord, this is coming together the way it is now, because, yeah, there's some real efficiencies, the real run government like a business. Of course we should be doing this. But even more important than that is this overarching security issue to me, because now we don't have two different groups kind of that give each other the basically it's the built-in excuse of, I thought they were doing it, I thought you were doing it, kind of a thing. That goes away. There's one department now, and they're charged with this. And the other thing I'll say, so security, efficiency, old line way of doing it, and going to data boards to get computers or phones or whatever it was, that's so dated and just not efficient in today's world. But the number one thing I'll say is thank you, Matt Nolan. Seriously, I want to say this publicly because it's a big deal. Other elected officials in other counties, why do people get so upset with government? And honestly, I'm going to say this, all government that I've seen, whether you're Republican or Democrat, there's a natural inclination for elected officials to build their kingdom. They want more employees. They want to hire people that they know. They want more of these employees that are getting their paycheck from them so they can go march in parades and go door to door or whatever. You're not supposed to do that. That's what happens. And for an elected official to literally give up part of his kingdom, his or her kingdom, is so rare. And that is such a big deal. So Matt Nolan, thank you. I mean, this is a big deal. And for you to say, go ahead and take these employees that used to report directly to you and say, give them to somebody else, that's so rare in all of government. It's amazing to me. And I want to jump up and down saying thank you to that, because you are serving the better good than just thinking about your own kingdom. So thank you.
I appreciate that it's misplaced. My plan was to put everything under me. And so Gary rightly pointed out the right plan. I'm half joking, but thank you.
No, and I want to say, I want to be on the record as saying I fully agree with every single word that you just uttered. Like I said, we are fully in support of this merger. And there's absolutely nothing that we want to do to get in the way of that. We just had those hesitations and reservations like I expressed, and we want to move forward. We want to see this happen, because I'll tell you, I have had that same experience, similar to you, that as a new countywide elected official, I come in and no fault to IT and telecom because they've been separate. We have various issues and we reach out and it's like, oh, I thought I needed to talk to telecom, but I found I need to talk to IT. And then that same issue changes a little bit over time, where we discover something new about it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we got to refer you back to telecom, and you're kind of bouncing back and forth. And again, coming from private industry, private business, I look at that and I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense at all. So I'm in 100% agreement, and especially when it comes to the threats issue, we deal a lot with confidential information in the court, social security numbers, banking information, a lot of private records, victims information. The last thing we want to see happen is for our data to be compromised in any way. That's not in our interest. And so for those reasons, I am 100% in support of this merger. Again, we just want to just make sure that we'll all continue to talk as we have been in the past, and that things will move forward seamlessly. And I do want to say to you, just as a quick note, and I promise I'll get down because you guys have other very important business to take care of.
Not really.
Well, I'm trying to be nice. No, but
For the whole month.
For my part, I want to make sure that my hesitation is not misunderstood as, and I understand, as you mentioned, that looking at it as an extra layer of bureaucracy. Just to briefly explain, for me, my hesitation as I was looking at it was an issue of just making sure we maintain checks and balances and accountability within government. You know, I'm always looking at things from the outside in as if I'm a resident and not an elected official. And I always want to see accountability. And I'm not saying that this form of merger, this way of merging would completely eliminate that. I'm just asking the question. I'm being that seventh man who asked, hey, is this a good idea? The contrarian, you know, the devil's advocate who asked, is this a good idea? Just because I'm always thinking, okay, will we sacrifice accountability for efficiency? Because government should always be efficient, but you know, our framers did set up our government with our federal republic with a system of checks and balances for a reason. And there are certain areas where government is not meant to move as slowly, which is why, as a small government person, I believe that government should not be involved in everything, because there's certain things government's just not good at, and it'll never be good at, and it's not intended to be good at, so we keep government out of that. So that was where I was coming from, not wanting it to be an added layer of bureaucracy or anything like that, but I was looking at it as accountability and checks and balances.
Yeah, your explanation of the trade-off is spot on, is that we always have to make sure we get that. I'm not casting aspersions on you.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I appreciate that,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, I think the good news is if all the, the board is accountable in a pretty transparent way, because unlike the other elected officials, we actually have public meetings and public hearings, and, so I didn't mean to suggest that raising your concerns were inappropriate in any way. I think you summed it up nicely. But I think in this instance, I agree with Commissioner Young that the trade-off, I think, is an appropriate one, and I think you'd have our commitment to ensure that, all parties are able to weigh in on decisions to the extent that they require some collaboration. So we're not trying to stifle that collaboration in any way.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. And this is my first time coming up here and speaking to you as an elected official.
Isn't it exciting?
And so, yeah, I think even this discussion in and of itself is a little bit of like getting to know each other and where the other person's coming from and understand each other. And so it's been awesome.
Well, come
so,
anytime.
absolutely. I appreciate your input and the jobs that you do.
Well, no, I think there's wisdom being spoken in here, and I'm almost thinking maybe from a staff perspective, maybe we should continue to put, like a quarterly tech meeting on where the other elected officials are invited into a public meeting to come in and talk about, are you having problems here? What are you thinking? And basically this almost becomes a data board that
You can do it in one of our work sessions.
yeah,
in fact.
that during a work session, again, that we're not dictating anything to anyone, again, but again, that's with this board. I'm also thinking ahead of, for future boards, maybe it would be prudent to set up, a quarterly work session, and if no one wants it, we can cancel it, but just to have this interaction where the other elected officials and the IT department would then come forward and talk in public what's going on, and are there concerns?
I mean, that's easily, obviously, we can set that up and things, but I would say that Gary and Ben have been working, and one of the first things that I think they want to do is, and the name will change potentially, but they'd like to create sort of that TED advocates board, which you and everybody else will sit on, and I would think that actually might be a monthly or every other month type of thing, where they're sitting down and making sure that you're having that voice. So I think we can do it informally, and we can do it formally.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good to me. So again, I will not take up any more time. Thank you all so much.
Okay. Well, anything else for anybody on this?
No, I think we just needed the guidance, because I think we've been working with Katie relative to, what we need to bring forward in the future relative to disbanding the data board, what that does, records commission stays. I think the only other thing that, Katie, if I remember correctly, is the microfilm board really doesn't need to be had any longer, or because it's not we're not using that any longer. So, and then obviously during budget time, we'll bring up some. So we just wanted to make sure we had the guidance of yes, go forward, no, don't go forward, and you'll see other things coming in the future as we do what you want.
All right, well, thank you. And certainly, this board is not trying to take over people's prior power. David mentioned how a lot of people like to conglomerate power within their own departments or their own fiefdoms or their own offices, but that's not this commission. We obviously are limited by what the state permits us to do. We want to do a good job with it, and we appreciate all of our countywide elected officials. We do the budgeting, we work with you, and I think that, those of you who are newer, like Randy Coogan, our new treasurer, and Brighton, you since the beginning of the year, our new clerk of courts, will know. And of course, we've had a relationship with you outside of this too, but you know how we work, and you'll see that we're very amenable to all of your comments, and to the extent that you have very IT-related things going on in your offices, we want to do what is best for your office. And you're the ones who know how to do that, not us. We're not the experts in that, you are. Okay, anything else? And what do we need to do? Do we need to pass a resolution or just give a blessing to this?
Today was really just guidance, to see which way you wanted to go, and there'll be things that will come forward between now. Really, to Auditor Nolan's point is, as we start entering into the budget season, we really need to take their two budgets and bring them together. We need to sit there and let this be known out to all of the departments to make sure that they're integrated, to see how that works. So there's gonna be a multitude of things that you see from resolution form that disbands, create, and then also during the budget process. So this will be another 3.5 or so month process, but we didn't want to go any further unless you said yes, or if you said no, then obviously the
Okay,
conversation would have
well, I
stopped.
think you've got a collective yes.
Yep.
And is there anything else for us today? Okay, any other comments from anybody else in the audience? All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner, I just wanted you to have a printed copy of these numbers if you wanted to keep them from that.